Today, we're going to dive right back into the Spyro franchise, and I'm going to prove to you that we will see Spyro 4 most likely this year. Let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, King Guy here, and I am back with a brand new Spyro 4 video, which is following up on my previous Project Coffee video. But before we talk about that, I gotta ask, y'all ever heard of PAX East? It's a convention at Boston in the last week of March that is meant for gamers, both video gamers and tabletop gamers like D&D. And I'm gonna be there for all 4 days. Not only that, I'll be hosting my very first ever live panel about Spyro, and it's titled From Peak to Spyro, The Legacy of Spyro the Dragon, at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Bumblebee Theater. If you're in Boston or going to PAX East that weekend, make sure to come on by, say hi, and see me as I'm walking around a con, and don't forget to check out the Spyro panel on Sunday. Now, I already know people are going to be complaining when they see this video. Oh, another video from Canadian Guy about Spyro. Oh, here he goes again, ranting and raving.
Quit your crying, dummy.
I already stated that I was going to make this specific video, not once, but twice. And most importantly, it's my channel, so I get to talk about whatever I want. Complaining aside, I also have some new information that confirms not one, but 2 details that I actually stated in the past in my previous reports. And not only that, I think you're gonna like the final resolution and result from what I found, because I believe that I can, as close as I can without getting an official statement, prove that Spyro 4 is currently being planned to be announced this year. And it's possible it also could be released this year. So, where do we start? Now, if you didn't watch my previous video, you may be a little bit confused about some of the details I'll talk about here, but I'm going to try my best to summarize specific findings so that you're not lost. Here is an overview of the board of conspiracy, or just, you know, the BOC, and the path that we'll be taking for this video. While I was doing my deep dive in my previous video, searching up jobs, profiles, and more, I showed off a bunch of Toys for Bob workers who had jobs that indicated different details about the new Spyro title. But there was one person that I did not actually talk about. And the reason why is because he deserves his own section. Meet Paul Nelson, who is an environment art manager currently at Toys for Bob. He had been working there and in that position since August 2022, with the first project being Crash Team Rumble. But in his profile, it also mentions that he's working on an unannounced project, which of course we figured out to be the new Spyro title. But take a look at the bottom here of his experience. There is a mini story here that is being told. Quote, led a team of 8 artists in a special Unreal Engine 5 exploration project, which was instrumental in a pitch presentation for the studio. Now, Crash Bandicoot 4 and Crash Team Rumble were made in Unreal Engine 4 along with Reignited, so it's impossible for him to be referring to those games. So obviously the project that Paul Nelson is referring to here is the current project that Toys for Bob is currently working on. Now, all the way back in March 2024, in my initial report that Spyro 4 had started development, I had said that the start date was about December 2023 or January 2024. If you also remember, Toys for Bob had posted a picture of them doing experiments in Unreal Engine 5 for their next project, which was in December 2023. When you pair these 2 images together, an intense story actually starts to seep through. This presentation and playtest was Toys for Bob seemingly figuring out what or how to present an idea to Activision and Xbox. Now, I'm not going to further comment on the story yet because I do believe I have heard at least a version of this story in private, but the first chance I'll get, I'm going to ask about it in an interview to try to get a solidified answer for all of you. But why is all of this important? Well, actually, there's 2 reasons. The first one is that we can 100% confirm that the pitch was done before Toys for Bob became an independent studio, which means they were still a part of Activision when they pitched this game. And Paul Nelson confirmed that it got approved. So, as a part of that approval, Toys for Bob got spun off into an indie studio. Toys for Bob, months later, announced their partnership with Xbox. And Paul Yan, in an interview made on this channel, confirmed that the project that they are currently working on was with Xbox and Activision. Now, why is Activision involved? Well, Toys for Bob got around to updating their website after they became indie, and they made their mission statement very, very clear that they want to work on epic adventures for timeless characters. And look who's on display. Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. I don't know how much more I can spell it out more clearly. It's right there. It's literally right there, man. What do I gotta do? Spoon feed it to you? And the second thing that I found was Toys for Bob are actually creatures of habit. I decided to look up every game that Toys for Bob has led development on, and not just recently. I'm talking the entire history of the company. Take a look at how long it took from one game releasing to the next on this graph that I made. Since the company's inception, Toys for Bob has never taken more than 3 years to develop and release a game between the launch of their previous game. The closest was actually Skylanders Adventure, which took almost 3 years, 2.9 years exactly, after the release of Madagascar 2.
Status.
It's no good, Skipper. I don't know the codes.
Don't give me excuses. Give me results.
Even Crash Team Rumble, which was hit with delays and issues galore, still only took 2.7 years exactly from the launch of Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time to release. So simply put, if development started in December 2023, 3 years later lands us in December 2026, which means this year. And remember, this is a pattern that's been held since 1989. So that means if Toys for Bob's next project is at least getting announced this year, predictably, we should be seeing some evidence of it winding up, right? Meet Tina Shaw, who works at Activision. You may remember Tina from my previous video, where she lists that she has experience with Spyro, even though she started working in her position in August 2022, but Spyro Reignited was released in 2018. So how could she have experience with Spyro when she started her job 4 years after its launch? Also, note how every other project she has worked on has specific titles, except of course for Spyro. That's because, well, the title hasn't been revealed yet. Oh, and if you think this is about Spyro's involvement in Crash Team Rumble, notice how no other update or DLC is listed, only full games at launch. That's because she's not working on post-launch DLC. Speaking of, this brings me to my next point. What does she exactly work on? What is her job description? Well, she is a creative director specifically for marketing the launch of games, specifically the mobile and emerging franchise branches of Activision. She handles the pitches, the campaigns, the creative strategies, everything in between and more. If she has experience with Spyro already and her job is about the campaigns that lead up to the launch of games, then that would mean she already has worked or is working on a new launch campaign for a brand new Spyro title. And guess what? You don't work on launch campaigns if the game is years away from being even officially announced in the first place, which again ties us back to 2026. Now maybe you're picky and you want to see a job description that outright states that they are working on Crash and Spyro. Well, say less. I covered this in my previous video, but the ridiculously long title of Associate Manager, Consumer Products Marketing and Franchise, still too long of a name, included this piece of information in regards to working with emerging franchises. Quote, maintain Crash and Spyro franchises one-sheets, retail decks, and franchise decks. Also worth mentioning, this job requires the applicant to give game updates to third-party teams throughout development. How can you update the Crash and Spyro sheets and give third-party updates if there's no game to begin with? That's because there is one duh. Now, this job specifically covered merchandise, as in third parties who would be making merch based on these franchises on behalf of Activision and it being officially licensed. And you want to know something interesting? Last year, around May 2025, I had heard that there was going to be new Crash and Spyro merch coming in Q1 and Q2 of 2026. Now, I didn't initially say anything until December 2025, where we started to see distribution centers start to get some new stuff. That's when I came out and tweeted this tweet. Again, I said this in December 2025. And what do you know? In early March 2026, which is exactly between Q1 and Q2, brand new and refreshed merch began to drop for Spyro and Crash Bandicoot. Now, merch as evidence of a title existing can be finicky, because merch definitely precedes when something is going to be announced. It has happened nearly every single time. But merch also can just come out randomly and at random times and from random companies. So merch in of itself only shows minor interest and doesn't indicatively mean that something is coming. But here's the thing. I was given a heads up on a specific push for merch almost a year in advance. And not one, not two, but 3 companies all advertised their Spyro merch. Both old, new, and refreshed. All on the same day, in fact. And the rep that I spoke with for the company that they were working for, their merch hasn't even launched yet. So to me, this synchronized push, especially when you tie it to the job where they literally state that merch for Crash and Spyro is involved, makes me think that this time, this merch does mean something. Now, finally, we get to the last thing. At the GDC, the Game Developers Conference of 2026, Xbox had done a keynote about the upcoming tech and ideas for what they want to bring to Xbox's next console, Project Helix. Now, there was no live stream of the presentation, but thanks to the channel Day One, they got a handheld recording of the entire event. Close to the end, Jason Ronald, who was speaking about game preservation and how they want to bring older games back, making them compatible with today's hardware. However, he went on a very small side tangent about first-party legacy IP and how some will be coming back this year.
Everything that we do at the platform layer is in service to you as developers and in service to the games that you create. We have an incredible lineup of games coming out later this year. Some of our most iconic first-party franchises are returning this year, but we also have incredible games coming from the biggest publishers in the world to some of the most innovative, creative ideas from the independent development community.
Now, while Xbox of course has a lot of beloved IP like Halo or Fable, remember, Spyro now also falls in the category of what he's talking about, first party, which thus brings us back to the start, where once again, the current prediction of 2026 being when Spyro is going to be announced comes together perfectly like a beautiful tapestry. Now, if you're lost, let me make it blunt and clear. Spyro 4 is most likely coming this year, which, if we take what Jason Ronald said, we may not only see it announced, but it's possible we are legitimately playing it by the end of this year.
Yes! Yeah! Oh, better luck next time, buddy! Woo!
So let's take a look from the box perspective. Paul Nelson's story confirms a near exact start time on the pitch that landed Toys for Bob their Xbox partnership. It showed that the pitch was done while still being an official studio of Activision and before they spun off as an independent studio, further cementing that the game is a Spyro title. It also leads to Toys for Bob's past development times, which shows the space and time between every single project in the history of the studio has never exceeded 3 years. 3 years from the end of the online support of Crash Team Rumble lands us at the end of this year. So if this graph has any merit, this would mean that there should be evidence that a launch campaign is in the works. And according to Tina Shaw's profile, there is, where she manages the launches of campaigns in the emerging franchises space, where she stated that she has experience with a Spyro title that is not Spyro Reignited. This of course ties into the job that flat out mentions game updates and merch for both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. which then ties to my statement of merch coming in Q1 or Q2 of 2026. And thus far, 3 different companies are releasing merchandise all at the same time for the same franchise. And finally, the Xbox keynote statement saying that some of their most iconic first-party franchises are returning this year, which ties into every aspect of this video. Now, before you all go running off saying, Canadian Guy A states Spyro 4 is launching this year, blah, 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 I want you to pause for a moment. Jason said returning. What does he mean by that? Does he mean simply being announced? Or is he referring to them launching? Is he referring to both? Now, this may be a surprise for some of you, but in him saying that, there actually is wiggle room in there for interpretation. Also, sure, Toys for Bob may plan at this moment in time to have the game released within that 3-year span that I brought up, but this is also Toys for Bob's first game as an indie studio. Who knows exactly when they were able to say full speed ahead on the project while getting set up. Their new website was simply a tiki mask, for example, in May 2024 and wasn't updated until September. So I suggest, for my sanity, for your sanity, that while I do personally think we could be playing Spyro 4 by the end of the year, I am only setting my expectations on the game being announced this year. Anything else is absolutely a bonus. Now, what about that project that I spoke about in my massive video, Project Coffee? Well, for that, we gotta go over to the Crash Bandicoot side of things, which you can check out right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.